So yeah, I thought of doing another random shitty video on being a male with Aspergers and being an adult with Aspergers. And from what I've read and watched on YouTube, looking on the internet, that I think males with Asperger's tend to have more challenges in life, and that's especially when it's the adult life, being an adult, being grown up. And you may get females that have challenges, but they their symptoms are definitely just don't seem to be as noticeable from what I've watched, like what people have said on YouTube and stuff. Whereas I've personally watched female YouTubers that have Asperger's, or I think they say autism because they're a bit like politically correct, some of them. And I don't, I don't think I'd notice if I'd not said it. But I don't know. I've also seen male people with Asperger's where were similar, but I've also seen male people with Asperger's that I can kind of tell they're probably on the spectrum, but they seem to live a functional life. But like I'm no expert, I'm no psychologist, so I don't know. But just being an adult with Asperger's, because like once you turn 16, I feel like you're expected to just grow up overnight when you've barely had any experience in life. Like coming from me personally, where school don't teach you proper life skills other than like fucking maths and English and other bullshit curricular sort of stuff like. So like, yeah, I found you're expected to just grow up overnight once you turn 16. And when it's males, I find they seem to find it more challenging. Where just 1 minute. So like if you're male, they seem to find it more challenging. Where um, the struggle to, like, coming from my personal experiences, where like the struggle to get a job, getting a house is hard these days, next to near impossible. Even getting a job's next to near impossible, where it's, if you don't apply for hundreds and hundreds of jobs, it's just not going to happen. The dating market's corrupt, where males who are average and below average, who don't have any money, don't have any status, kind of have no chance in the dating market, or very little, it seems. getting a driving license. This is a response to a video I watched yesterday where getting a driving license is harder to do these days, mostly based on that it costs a lot of money, and chances are you're gonna, if you fail your lessons, you're not going to get that money back. So you're just throwing money constantly towards something that you may not get back, and that's just the typical system where I think they do it on purpose to get more money because it's business at the end of the day. Like taxes and all that sort of stuff, get taxed for this and that. I live in an area, like I live near, like just outside of Manchester, where I think we have, if not the best or one of the best transport systems in the country, where it's relatively easy to get around. But my experience of getting public transport since being a teenager slash adult, it's not always an enjoyable experience where buses can get crowded, you can get some horrible people on it, get mentally ill people, antisocial people, you know the story, just so on. And like I've personally got myself a provisional license to maybe one day take driving lessons with the intentions of doing that, but I don't know when that's going to happen because it comes to money and confidence. But if I wanted to drive so much, I probably would have done it by now anyway. But yeah, I'm going off topic there, but that's part of why this life is hard, and I just feel like things are getting harder where in the olden days it was easier to get a driving license, it was easier to get a house, it was easier to get a job, it was easier to get a fucking partner, find love. And coming from my experience, I just think that stuff's just not happening. Yeah, Aspergers is the easy thing to blame it on, but yeah, like I don't know if it's me or the world around me. I just don't know. Um, I think my situation could be worse, where I could be homeless. Where I'm currently in supported living. I live in an area where it's classic, could be better, could be worse. But for all I know, they could decide to kick me out whenever. Where they decide, right, you're able enough to get a job, you're able enough to do this, so and you just know how corrupt the system is. They just don't give a fuck. Classic system, classic modern world. People just don't give a fuck. Where they can choose to kick me out whenever, and I don't know what would happen then, but I'm basically fucked. I'm knackered. But yeah. And I've talked about jobs before. I don't know if I'm going to get much into detail about my feelings with jobs because I made a video on that technically yesterday about laziness and stuff. But look, I'm currently volunteering at the minute, but I'm thinking of quitting that soon and seeing what else there is. But from what I've found, I'm very picky when it comes to stuff. Like, what's the purpose in getting this job? What's the purpose in volunteering? What's in it for me? The people make the place for me. Because I think when it comes to autism and stuff, and neurotypicals, normal people just see a job as a means to an end. When you're autistic, it's more than that. Because you forget a job is most of your life. You spend most of your life working in a job. Does it make sense to get a job where you're going to be miserable in when it's most of your life? No, it fucking doesn't. And I think people with autism have that ability to see through that, where normies, neurotypicals don't. They just don't have the ability to see that. So if I'm going to get a job, I want something that is bearable at the very fucking least. It's the people that make the place. Um, Came across something yesterday about do think it's called the National Autistic Society. If there's a time where I'm forced into a job, I might think of approaching them because they might. I've heard they're supportive when it comes to people with autism, and I'm not one of these woke people that wears autism on the sleeve. Where it, it, I don't see autism as my identity like all these wokies do. Like, I'm not into that shit. But I'm not just going to get a shit job for the sake of a shitty job. If it's, I want something bearable, and if it's autistic friendly, so fucking be it. So that'll be one option that I might take. And just other things like maybe working with animals, but I was looking for voluntary work with animals, and I've done it before, and to be honest with you, I struggle with it because a lot of them are miles away where I might have to commute. Like, I might have to commute quite a long way, and they're just in the middle of nowhere, these sort of places, so I'll be knackered before I fucking get there. So I do struggle with looking for stuff like that. I struggle with other things because I'm just picky with that. It's just how I am. Um, but yeah, I think this channel's going to be Aspergers based, but it's not a politically correct channel about Aspergers where I will say what I think. Like, there's going to be no filter. Like, not bashing on these channels, but some of these autism channels can be very politically correct. But yeah, I think this channel's going to be mostly Aspergers, but it's about anything really. And I'm also thinking, I don't know, maybe I'm making an unhealthy obsession of making these videos. But yeah, I think that's just another ranty video today. Catching another video. Goodbye.